those who have not met me before, let me introduce myself. I am Dorothy Wordsworth, sister of William, the talented poet. We have been walking between Thirsk and Helmsley on our way to Scarborough. We rested at Sutton Bank and are now setting off across the countryside, which here is a flat plain. It seems strange to think of crowds of people there, cheering on galloping horses, striving to win the Royal Gold Cup. As we walked on, we came to a large, strange stone. A passer-by told us it was called the Dial Stone, and that once it had had a pillar on it with a sundial and weighing scales for weighing the jockeys before they raced. We walked on now over heather moors beginning to turn purple and bilberries, and the weather was becoming cooler. We came to a hamlet with stone cottages and thatched roofs, and an old church with a large old font outside and a strange circular stone, which the landlady of the inn told me were monastic relics, and I would see a lot more down at Riveaulx. She kindly offered me a glass of milk, and as I sat to drink it, she told me the story of how the inn had got its name, that long ago there had been a woman called Agnes, known locally as Black Agnes, who had lived in a cottage on the outside of the village. People thought she was a witch. Horses would shy when they went by the cottage. Dogs would go by on the other side of the road. When anything went wrong, it was down to Black Agnes. When the cow got ill, when butter wouldn't come, when the cow milk dried up, all was the fault of Black Agnes. One farmer, who thought his cow was not giving enough milk, decided he would sit and watch. And he sat there that evening outside the cow byre as a hare came lolloping along and went into the cow byre. He followed it, and there the hare had his mouth around one of his cow's teats. He shot it, but only wounded it in the leg, and the hare lolloped off back down the road. A day or two later, the Bilsdale hunt came along, and their hounds raised a hare, and they bit it on the leg, and they chased it, and they chased it, and it got under the door of the cottage. The huntsman came along and banged on the door, and there was Black Agnes, dying from bleeding wounds in her leg. This was the story, then, of the witch. The landlady told me that you needed witchwood because there were still witches in North Yorkshire. She gave me some witchwood to protect myself. She said, you go out into the countryside, you found a rowan tree that you hadn't seen before, you cut some wood from it, and you'd go home by a different route. So now I have my witchwood to protect me from witches. I walked on down a deep ravine with shady, lofty trees on either side until I came to Riveaulx, where William was waiting. A kind lady in a nearby farm gave us some bread and milk because we were hungry, and feeling refreshed, I went to look at the ruins of Riveaulx. There were cattle grazing peacefully among the hillocks and the fallen stones. There were thrushes singing, and wild roses and other flowers scenting the air with a delicate perfume. It was so peaceful I could have spent longer there, but we had to walk on, up the hill to Mr. Duncombe's terrace. We climbed over the gate and walked down the road into Helmsley. We saw the usual sights of a countryside road. There was a team of horses struggling to pull a load of timber with a bad-tempered man shouting and whipping them. There were two poor, thin boys dragging a log of wood home. It looked like they really need their help from their father. As we walked down the road, we could see the ruins of Helmsley Castle, and we went into the town to find the old manor house where we were to stay, with its yellow walls, casements covered in jasmine. We were made very welcome, and I was extremely weary and very much in need of a rest.